Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this week's episode of GCC's Georgia Chiro Connection. I'm your host, Dr. Kathy, and I'm excited to have our guest today, which I hope we did not lose him. Our guest today is Dr. Rick Franks. Doc, can you hear me? Okay, we might have a technical issue. So while we're getting Dr. Franks back on the line, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the things going on for GCC. And Dr. Rick, if you get on the line, just let us know. We're going to talk about a couple of things we have going on. Of course, we have our continuing ed all summer long. We've got great continuing ed events that will be coming up. The first one that I do want to talk about, though, however, is a social event. And in June, next weekend, we have our cornhole tournament. So it'll be on Saturday, June 10th. It'll be at Dr. Dan Tu's office. That's going to be in the Roswell, Marietta, East Cobb area. So you can get all the information about that on our website at georgiachiropractic.org. So you'll want to get there early. We've got a lot of people that are planning to play that day. We've got a bunch of teams. Please get registered so we know that you're coming so that we can prepare for the right amount of people. But the great thing about this cornhole tournament is it helps to raise money for End Slavery Georgia. And it's just a really great cause to just bring awareness to the fact that slavery does still exist. It's not what you think of from the old days. It's what we have going on in the current day. So that is a great cause to support. So check out our website for information about the cornhole tournament. So exciting, very happy. Good to see you back on screen. Dr. Franks, how are you?
Hey, doing great, man. I'm doing great. And thank you for inviting me to be here. It's great to be invited anywhere at my age, I tell you. So,
oh, you know what? As Dr. Sid would always say, it's better to be seen than viewed, right?
There you go.
Right. And I noticed you got a picture of Dr. Sid right there over your shoulder.
Yes, that's my hero.
Yeah, mine too. Yep. He really did a lot for us. He not only for the profession, but personally, I think he did so much for so many of us. Anyone who came through life, anybody who stayed in Georgia, just Dr. Sid was such a fixture in so many of our lives.
I loved being I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him when I was with GCC, and I got to travel to Washington with him and see how the legislative thing worked. And if we had like 4 or 5 hours, I could tell you a whole lot more. But it was an amazing. You know, when you're right in it, you don't realize it, and then 10 years later, you realize, wow, that was a ride. You know, and it was really, truly the most amazing part of my life. And I learned more from those trips and hanging out with him in the coffee shop at 1:30 in the morning and trying to figure out how do we get GCC going and all that kind of stuff. And it was just an incredible time. And to watch him work and watch how he thought and learn to think like he thought. And he was always 2 steps, 3 steps ahead of everybody else. And it was, a lot of it was from experience and getting beat up along the way and taking all the slings and arrows. And but it really opened my eyes to the battle that we're in and the fight that we're in today.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because I knew Dr. Sid first as a student and then as a young and upcoming doc, but I never really knew him in that in this atmosphere, working side by side and being on boards with him. And I've heard from so many of our older friends that were in those positions that his tenacity, his dedication, he never took no for an answer. He always had like clear focus on what his agenda was and the direction that we were going. And he never let other people sway what the outcome was going to be.
You knew, he really was somebody. Defined him one day. I heard it and I started thinking, I said, yeah, that's really true. I said, he's like a mini Trump. You knew exactly what he wanted. He's not going to lie to you. He's not going to beat around the bush. He's telling you what you like, and you either loved him or you hated him. And that was the way, But the thing about it is he never veered off where he was going and what he wanted to do. You see a lot of things in school nowadays that would never have happened when we were there. And just because of the principle, and his whole thing was, is this in line with the principle of what we're trying to do? And if it was, he'd go with it. If it wasn't, nope, didn't happen. And which was really, it gave me strength. It gave me inner strength, which is, I'm trying to be honest here, which doesn't seem to be as strong now as it used to be with new people. So hopefully we can stick around long enough, and the strong people can influence the younger people to get back into the principle and focus on that.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important that those of us who've been in the profession for 10, 15, 20, 30, 45 years, like you have, still contribute and still are here to help shape not just the current situation, but the future, which means our students and our up and coming docs. So tell us a little bit about, like, what has it, you've been in this profession for so long. You've gotten to sit with the giants. You've gotten to work side by side with Dr. Sid. You've gotten to help so many doctors. What is it that has helped you be successful and stay invested and involved and engaged in chiropractic for 45 years?
If I had to narrow it down to one thing, is that sitting in assembly with Dr. Sid every Thursday morning and listening to him tell the chiropractic story in so many different ways. And in most of the ways, I had no idea what he was talking about. And it took me about 4 years to figure it out, And, but the bottom line was I got the philosophy. And once you have the philosophy and you have what they call the big idea, everything else you do is secondary. It has nothing to do with anything else but locating and removing vertebral subluxations. Once you have that, then you got one thing that you can sell to your patients. One thing that you get them to, they buy into you in the beginning because they believe in you. But the idea is not to get them to buy into you, is to buy into chiropractic. And that's through education. And the two things that I learned is, one, how to be there's two things that make you successful, I think. You got to give a good adjustment. Number one, you got to give a good adjustment. And number two is you got to be able to educate. And if you can educate them, they will become understanders of what we do. And they will start to learn the process. And I learned it. And, it's amazing when I think back and look at how many of the people that went through school with me never got to that point. Never got to that point of understanding what chiropractic was, and started looking for all the shiny objects down the road. And let's do this, and let's do this, and let's try this. And we know whatever the newest game was in town, we got to go there. And I just never veered from there because it's what's got me, it got me to where I wanted to go. And that was to see a huge number of people and change people's life through removing subluxations. And that's all it took. And I just couldn't stand it to watch another guy practice and spend 20 minutes talking about diet and nutrition and exercise. And those are all great. Got nothing against them. Mm-hmm. But I would rather spend that time locating and removing subluxations, because without that, all the nutrition in the world doesn't work. All the exercise in the world is not as good, And I would form alliances with nutritionists and exercise therapists and physical therapists, and I'd send them there. But I wanted to focus. I wanted to be like Colonel Sanders. I wanted to do one thing and do it very well, And I don't see that today. I don't see that like what we used to have. And it's kind of like the reason I stay in this, the reason I don't retire, is because students still need this and they're not getting it. And I want to, and there's even doctors out there now, and they're struggling. They're struggling. And I see it's because, my first question is, so tell me what your philosophy is. And most of them can't even verbalize their philosophy of who they are and what they stand for. And it's once you can stand for what you say you are, it gets easy. It gets easy. It's like the easiest, I ask people, okay, I'm a lay person, explain chiropractic to me. And in, 15 minutes later, they've explained it to me. I said, now take that same explanation and do it to them and tell me it in 5 seconds.
Right.
And they can't do it. And until you own that, and because, a person's, they say we have the attention span of a goldfish now, which is about 8 seconds. Okay. And so that's where it has gotten now from that 15-minute thing. Let's break it down into 8 seconds. Can you tell me that? Do you own chiropractic enough that you can explain that to me in 5 seconds so that it makes sense and it makes the person want to know more, and so that they can understand a little bit more going ahead. And that's my job now, is to try to find young people and bring them along and educate them to where they can do those same things, because that's all you really need. And we don't have enough chiropractors to change the world. And if we got chiropractors out there doing everything but chiropractic, how are we ever going to change the world?
And we need to stay true to what it is that we do, and not try to do everything else, because I think all those other nutrition's great. I'm very aware of what I eat. Exercise is great. I teach group fitness on a regular basis, but I don't do it in the office because those are referral sources.
Exactly.
Let them do what they do. Let us do what we do.
And you don't want to water things down, and people say, well, how do you explain chiropractic in 5 seconds? And, I just use the same thing that I've been using for 30 years. And I put this little rubber band around me. I say, is this finger as healthy as it was 2 seconds ago? And they'll say, well, no. I said, well, if this is your brain and this is your spine, and this could be any part of your body you want, what do I need to do to get this part working better? So you got to get rid of the pressure. And that's what we do. We take the pressure off. Now the brain can talk to the rest of the body. Boom. It's done. That was less than 5 seconds, and I can make that a 5-minute conversation, or I can make it 5 seconds. Now, and it gets people to think, what would be the best thing to do there? Would taking an aspirin fix that? No. Would be, slicing and dicing with it, or physical therapy, or, doing blood tests no, there's only one thing that you could do. And millions of people, hundreds of millions of people are walking around with pressure on their nerves. And if you just take it and you tell people, they say, listen, okay, you go to the chiropractor, he comes in, he takes it, and you go, oh, I feel a little bit better. I say, okay, we still have more to do. And over a series of adjustments, you get rid of all that pressure. Now, is this finger as healthy as it was before I did this whole thing? And they'll say, no. I said, it was damaged just in the 10, 20 seconds, and it has to heal. Now, imagine that rubber band being on there for 30 years, which is why it takes time. Principle number 6, everything takes time. And so that's how you explain chiropractic to somebody in 30 minutes. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to diagnose your condition. I'm not going to, do all these other things. I'm going to find out what's causing the disconnect between your brain and your body. I'm going to remove that. And like one of my mentors, Dick Santos, used to say, he says, when you're on the table, what's happening is between you and me. And when you get off the table, it's what happens between you and your creator. What a great line.
That is true.
I use that all the time. Okay, now it's up to you and your maker. It's your turn now. Okay, so I've done my job. They can do theirs. And that's all we are, is we're a catalyst to life, basically. We help get that life working again.
I love it. So I'm going to change gears, because I kind of have a feeling I know what you're going to say. For the students who are watching this, or the up and coming students, the young docs, what is it that they should focus on so that they can be successful and have a lengthy career in chiropractic?
I really feel for the students, because when we were in school, I tell students nowadays, I said, you guys are getting a great education. You guys are getting a great education, 100 times better than I ever got, because they hadn't even graduated class when I started, but I got a much better chiropractic education than they're getting, because every one of my teachers was a chiropractor, all 3 of them. And the thing is they would teach the first 40 minutes on whatever the subject was. In the last 10 minutes, they said, now this is how you integrate that into what you do. And it was boom, mind boggling. And they don't get that. So in other words, their focus is still out here. And the idea is to get that focus and bring it into here. So you're laser focused on doing what you do. And so the idea here is keep reading those green books, keep studying, keep watching, and keep learning. You're spending $250,000 and 4 years of your life on chiropractic. But as my son went through school and I watched what courses he took, 15% of the courses were chiropractic courses. It was like incredible. It should be the other way around. 85% should be on chiropractic and 15% on the peripherals. But the idea is just get your philosophy right, work on that, hang around doctors like you, Kathy, and all the really focused doctors, and have that run off on you. Have that, drink it up. Yeah. And I tell people, they say, well, I want to indoctrinate nutrition into my practice. I said, well, why are you even a chiropractor? Why don't you save $250,000? Go to a GNC, buy a franchise, read a couple of nutritional books, and you got it, babe. Save you a lot of time and money. Why don't you be a chiropractor? Do it. My grandmother could tell me to take vitamin C. Right? My grandmother could tell me, show me how to exercise better. Right. Nobody can legally remove nerve interference more than we can, other than us.
Right.
And so why don't you learn the one thing that differentiates us from everyone and makes us needed and wanted? And
I love that.
And once you get that into your mind and into your heart, then people come to you, as I think Thoreau said, it doesn't matter what you say, it's who you are that really matters, and so they come to me, and they would come to me because they couldn't necessarily recite what we do, but they knew it worked and they knew how it worked. And once you got that, that's when you have lifetime chiropractic patients that are bringing their families and the kids in.
Yes.
And so it's like when you buy into it, got to buy into what they're trying to tell you. And so go back and read the books. Go back and read the Science of Getting Rich and the Think and Grow Rich and all those, and the green books. And there's a book out now by Rob Sino. I love his book. He took the 33 principles and he wrote a new book. Have you seen that? Chiropractic Fullest. He took that book and modernized it. It's incredible. It's incredible what that book is. There's where you get your philosophy right there. And he explains it in today's language and uses pictures, because that's what we do. We paint pictures. And this was a picture. I painted a picture in the minds. Okay.
Right.
And so you learn how to paint pictures in people's minds, because they don't think in words, they think in pictures. Right. And so.
Well, they're so used to scrolling through their phones and looking at whatever catches their attention quickly. So to do something visual is really going to help.
Yeah. So it's a different world. I understand it, but chiropractic hasn't changed. Chiropractic is still chiropractic. It will always be chiropractic until something crazy happens and they decide it's not chiropractic anymore. And, you're speaking, I'm going to answer a question that you were going to ask me. I want to, while it's on the top of my mind here, something happened to me when I was on the board, the GNC vice president, Brad Pisa and I started back in the beginning. Same night, we started the same night when a guy named Bill Willis asked us if we could spend 20 minutes a month on GCC activities. Okay. And we said, sure, 20 minutes. That's not bad. Yeah. And
you know how I got the same story, 20 minutes a month, huh?
It hadn't even gotten any better. Huh? So anyhow, we got involved in that, and we spent and Brad's still with you, and I don't no longer live in the area, but we had an incident that happened, and this is when we were still growing, because our group took the GCC from 30 members to over 300 in our period of time there. And it was really cool how we did that. But when I really learned the importance of that is that we were involved, Brad and I and a couple other of the board members met with the GCA every 2 weeks for a year because the GCA wanted to change the law. They wanted to get rid of subluxation. They wanted to get rid of that word. They wanted to get rid of innate intelligence. They wanted to get rid of one other word. I can't remember what it is. They wanted to change it in our law because the law was antiquated and they wanted to bring it up to date. So we spent a year every 2 weeks going through this, arguing back and forth with it. And it basically went around a whole circle. And after a year, we ended up back in the same place. We weren't willing to give. They weren't willing to give. They said, screw you guys. We're out of here. We're going down to the Capitol. We got somebody that's going to sign off on our bill. We're going to go change chiropractic ourselves. And we said, well, go for it, guys. And this is when we were still very young. I think there's maybe 50 members in the GCC. So they went down to the Capitol. We showed up. They had a fella, a senator that was going to sign off in the bill. It was going to be boom, chiropractic or subluxation is gone, innate intelligence gone, adjustment is gone. They wanted to call it something else, and we sat there, and the guy presented it, and finally, the last thing was, is there anybody here that disagrees with this or wants to contend it? And Dr. Sid and Dr. Didi and probably about 8 of us were there, and Dr. Sid's attorney. And yes, sir. And we are the GCC. They never even had heard of us. The GCA didn't tell them who we are. We showed up. We are members. We are, I don't know how many members. We told them we are strong, but we went over this and said, this is not what chiropractic is. This is what we stand for. And this guy, the senator or congressman, I can't remember, he was down. It was an amphitheater type of sitting. He was down there in the middle. This was all brand new to him. They never told him anything about it. And he felt like about this tall after supporting that bill. And he just stood there. And when this was all said and done, he said, I rescind my motion to approve this. He said, I'd like to table this because I did not have all the information. Boom, slam dunk. They canceled it. They walked out. We walked out. We thought there were going to be a fist fight outside. And we were like, Brad and I, I'll never forget, Brad and I said, did you just see what we just saw? Let's get out of here before they kill us, And so, we were standing outside and it was hot. It was very hot. And Dr. Sid came out and we're like waiting for it because he didn't come out for a while. We're like, you think they got him? You think we need to go back and get him? And he came out and he goes, did you just see what happened? On the Capitol floor? There's blood on that floor, boys. And he was so happy. But my point being here was simple. My point of this whole story was we weren't the largest group, but we were strong in what we stood for and if it hadn't been for the GCC that day, chiropractic would not be chiropractic in Georgia. And so that's the importance of belonging to your state organization and sticking with them through thick and thin, at least through your dues. And, if you got time, put some time into it, help it out. Because yes, it's not the biggest, but it offers a counterbalance that allows us to stay on principle and keep us alive, because we would not be here. We would not be here in the way that we are without that day and without the backing of the members of the small amount of members in the GCC. And like I say, Brad will tell you that same story. But it was a day I'll never forget. If you stand up loud enough and you talk and you stay on your principle, you can't lose.
I love it. What a great story. I've heard bits and pieces of that, but it's nice to hear it from someone who was standing there as it actually unfolded. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. So for the students, if you're listening, if you're watching this is just a little bit of a call to action that if you're not already a GCC member, if you're not already an ICA member, it's time to put your money into your future. You've got to belong. You've got to join, because there are things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize. They just take for granted. They're so busy practicing. They've got their head down. They don't even know that there's legislation coming up all the time to try to change the profession. And if you don't have the right organizations with their ear to the ground, paying attention, with people ready to step forward, act, stand up, speak, take the arrows, and really put ourselves out there, then the profession can easily get swayed and changed to something we don't even recognize. So students, if you're not already involved, join the GCC. Docs, if you're watching this and you haven't renewed your membership, it's time to renew or level up to take one of the higher level memberships. So Dr. Franks, thank you so much for sharing that message.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time. And before I let everybody go, let me just remind you of some of the upcoming events we have. We're going to run through this one more time. Don't forget, we have our cornhole tournament coming up next weekend. That's Saturday, June 10th. You've got to be there around 12:30, 1 o'clock. Everybody will be already there getting set up. At 2 o'clock, those bags start to fly. So you want to be there. It's a fun time. It'll be a beautiful outdoor event at Dr. Dan Tu's office over in East Cobb. Come, have a good time, help support End Slavery in Georgia, help raise money for chiropractic. And then don't forget, we've got all of our continuing ed events that start this summer and they go all the way through December. We have so many great events coming up for you. We've got Atlanta Marriott coming up the middle of July. We've got Augusta. We've got Savannah. We've got Warner Robins. And then, of course, we're back here for our Christmas event. So they're going across the bottom of the screen. Check them out. We got Atlanta. We got Augusta. We've got South Georgia. We've got Savannah. And our convention is that weekend of December 8th through 10th. That's our Christmas party. It's always a great time. One more thing I do want to remind you about is our golf tournament. So if you haven't already marked your calendars, mark it now for our golf tournament. That is Thursday, October 19th. It's going to be back at Bridge Mill again. Last year, we sold out the course, so it is going to sell out again. Get yourself registered. If you register by June 30th, you're going to save $25 a player, $100 per team. You can use that code right there. You can just pause this video, scan that with your phone, or even touch right on it. Go to chirocup.com, go to georgiachiropractic.com, whatever it takes, get yourself registered. And if you are a business and you want to support, be one of the sponsors, be a whole sponsor, let us know. We'd be happy to have you. Dr. Franks, thank you so much for all you do for GCC, for chiropractic, and for chiropractors.
Same to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me here.
Thank you for taking the time. And for everybody else, thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week right here for GCC's Georgia Chiro Connection. Bye-bye.